And we're back once again, only on it's Last Call. Last Call, the alcohol, only on the Last Call Podcast.com. And join me here on location. Well, if you were watching the NCAA championships, this gentleman here was the talk of a town, a 10 seed who just every match was must see TV, winning comebacks, knocking off top seeds. And then in a storybook that even Hallmark and Disney would go, yeah, that's fake. We can't write that. Defeats the number one seed to become the NCAA champion, 149 pounds, the first for Stanford since 2021, before they got reinstated back into wrestling. Ladies and gentlemen, the champ is here. I give you it is redshirt sophomore himself, Aden Valencia. So, Aden, is it still surreal when people go NCAA champion, Aden Valencia?
Yeah, it's a crazy thing to think about. Honestly, I think it's been a couple weeks since the event, and you know, I'm kind of eyes on the next thing. So yes, I'm the NCAA champ, but I also have world and Olympic aspirations. So I've been training hard for the last couple weeks to try to make a world team in 3 weeks. But it's definitely really cool to be able to go into that tournament saying that I'm the national champ. So.
Take us to that championship match. How much do you like? I like the fact that you came out and you were aggressive. You were out in front early. Was that by design? Like, was that something that you had seen last couple of matches? Like, all right, I really want to start off fast. I want to get. I want to get. Be. Don't let this be a repeat of the first time I took on Van Ness. I want to be the one who makes him react.
Yeah, I wanted to start off with a really hard pace and set the tone for the match. I knew it was going to be one of those matches where I was going to have to go into deep waters, and I wanted to take him there first and make him feel like I was going to drown him there. Um, I knew that the guy he wrestled in December was going to be feel very different from the guy he was wrestling in that match, and I wanted to let him know early. In December, I was, you know, maybe some things were not as dialed in as they were by the time March came around. I wasn't lifting as much. I wasn't as, you know, size fit to size for 49 yet. I was still kind of growing into the weight. Obviously, there's a lot of technical things that I had to work on to improve myself by March, but I knew that when he felt me in that finals match, it was going to be a very different Aiden than when he felt me in December. So, like I said, I wanted to start off really hard just so he knew that right off the bat. I almost surprise him, throw him off. That was definitely one of the game plans. And just overall, I was excited to wrestle. I wanted to go out there and score points. I was confident going into that match, and I felt like I could take it to him. So, I started off hard. I tried to keep the pace the whole time.
The third period, there's like the last minute. You almost have him right before the overtime and or sudden victory, and he just he get grabs on a leg, you're grabbing on a leg, and time expires. And was that when did you realize like, okay, I have him? Next time I get a takedown, I get inside for a takedown, and next time I get him, I will finish this.
Yeah. So, there's in matches or sometimes you have your little up and down. So obviously I started off hard. The first period was definitely I won the first period. The second period he took. I was starting to get a little bit tired. There was a decision I had to make after that takedown. I went for a hard flurry. I went blast double up into over unders, and I went for that inside trip. Um, and we got into like a scramble. He ended up finishing, and in that moment, I kind of we went out of bounds. That's when I had to make a decision. Is this where I let him kind of pick up the pace and start building his momentum, or am I going to take a shift and start bringing it back the other way? And so going into that third period, I knew I needed to bring a little bit more heat, and I did. So I started letting my attacks go a little bit more. There was one attack at the end. I got in deep. The when I knew I had him is I shot in, and I was extended on a sweep single, and I was fully sprawled out, and I was tired, and with basically everything I had, I sucked in his leg. I like slowly inched towards it, and I pulled him up into an Iranian. And in that moment, I knew that I had I had it in me to pull it off. If I don't really know what it was that made me think that, but I think it was just a realization that how much stronger I was, the amount of core ability that I needed to pull his leg up like that was a lot more than I had at any point in the season or really in my life. And I knew in that moment that if I got to the legs again, I could finish. And then going into overtime, I knew the pressure was on him, and a high stakes situation like that, I thrive in, and I knew that was my opportunity to get the job done. So overtime came around. I basically knew it was going to come down to one perfect shot. It did. I slipped the collar's high, and I ran into that double, and I finished, and that was obviously the match.
We'll go back to this in a bit, but to me, the match that I think solidified everything, maybe I'm wrong, the win over Jackson Joy, because for the first two periods, you and I can both agree nothing went right. You're going for takedowns. He was able to stuff and spin around. He's
Hmm.
able to keep you on defense. He's up 7-2, which you and I both know. Most good wrestlers, if they have a 5 point lead going into the third, they usually win. They're good enough to stuff things. They will, something like you will go, okay, I know what to do. I know he's just going to attack. You got, yeah, and right off the bat, you were still fighting. You were attacking him, even when you still are. So it's 9 to it's 8-5. You're still attacking. Like, how much of that match do you look and go, that's just heart. That's just, I want it more. I don't care. I know I'm hurt. I know I'm sore. I am down. I do not care. I'm going to win this match.
Yeah. No, a lot. Most of it is literally just that. I was definitely hurting. I was exhausted. It's hard to put together four sequences in a row like that. I had to get four takedowns in the third period or between the second and third. Um, it's definitely hard. It comes down to almost entirely heart and just finding a way, and belief is another big important thing. It's one thing to kind of throw the kitchen sink at a guy and I hope you get a takedown. It's another thing to be able to go into each takedown and be pretty precise and actually believe that you can chip away at the scoreboard. um, if I would have gone in just trying to throw everything at him, there's a good chance some of those attacks are just there's all the hearts there, but if the belief isn't also there, then those attacks aren't meticulous, and I'm maybe not getting to his legs as precisely. So a lot of it was me really believing I could close that gap, I can close the lead, and so I was really smart about my attacks. And I just kept chipping away, and eventually I felt the dam starting to break. I felt him starting to get tired. After I picked up that second takedown, I was like, okay, now we're in real striking distance, and I can actually break him right now. So then I went for that third one. I tied up the score, and I knew I could have either ridden him and taken him over into overtime, but I also knew how tired he was. So I was like, let's let him go and get one more and ice this match, and I was able to find a way to do that. And so honestly, that match was the highlight of the tournament for me. The finals was, you know, without question the most emotional and like most meaningful match, but that quarters match was definitely my best match. And if I look back at like what match shows the most character, Aden Valencia character, I would say look at my quarterfinals match.
When I spoke with Nico, your teammate Nico Provo, he said, "But there's always a moment where you go, I'm going to win. I'm going to win. Then I will be national champion." Was that the moment for you when you went, I'm going to be national champion? If I can do this, which odds are against me from after the third period on, if I can do this and beat a guy coming back 7-2, I'm going to win this whole thing. It was like, was that the moment where you went, I will be national champion?
I think the moment started before that. I know going into the tunnel, I felt it was like one of the first time, actually not one of, it was the first time I went into a match. Almost, I feel like I'd almost brainwashed myself because I wrote this story like a month in advance, and kind of talking about basically how the outcome was going to turn out, and I had other factors that were motivating me to get it done, and so I went into the match like really believing that I was going to win. I really didn't know how, but I knew I was going to find a way. Um, so going into the match, I had the belief that I was going to be a national champion.
We're talking about the highlights right now. We have Aden Valencia on the show talking national championship. There's a low point, And for you, I'm guessing it was January 23rd. You just lost 2-1 to Colin Gage. You're now 9-6, and as you said, you're trying to get the weight up. You're trying to get your energy. You're losing tight matches here to Shayne Van Ness, to Koi Busejans, Colin Gage. What got you out of the funk? And was it mental? Was it just physical? Like when you look back, like what was the catalyst for going? All right, this has to stop. I gotta get out of this funk, and I gotta get back on track.
It's a little bit of everything. And this is where my support system was very valuable to me. It wasn't really one specific thing. My wrestling needed some work. I needed to work on my finishes. My hands were too heavy. I needed to clear hands better. That was the technical piece. My lifestyle, I probably wasn't as precise on my diet and my cuts. Maybe I wasn't sleeping enough. Um, maybe I wasn't performing in the classroom, and so then it was affecting the way I felt going into a practice. I was maybe a little bit more stressed. There's obviously some psychological things going on, so it wasn't just one thing. It was multiple things, and like I said, that's where my support system was really important to me. My coaches, you know, trying to help keep me on track. They were really important on the wrestling end, but also the psychological end. And then my parents, my family, um, my dad, I'm obviously really close with, so he would follow up, make sure I'm getting the right amount of sleep, making sure that I'm doing well in the classroom and just, being good supporters and checking in. And obviously my teammates who are pushing me in the room to continue to get better. And so I think, having all of these factors and slowly tightening them up. And I definitely realized after that match against Colin Guy, there's things that I wasn't doing right, and there wasn't enough time. If I didn't fix them now, then I wasn't going to be a national champion. So I knew I needed to fix some things and start really getting on track, or I was going to miss out on an opportunity of a lifetime. Um, so yeah, credit to my support system for helping me figure it out and get better, and obviously get ready for March.
It's tougher, I'm guessing, because when I researched you, you placed sixth in the Senior U.S. Open Freestyle. You're a 2024 France Grand Prix champion. You were, on the U under 17 Greco-Roman, World Team member. You were, Reno Cherniv champions, first place in the college division, 2022. I mean, everything seems came easy, and then again, then you go to college, then you're doing. Oh, by the way, you're studying for class. You're going to a legit college, not like Tennessee Tech, and you're taking basket weaving. You are majoring in here. Even I have trouble now, remembering this science, technology, society major. As Nico told us here, you're taking tests and exams on planes. You're flying all over the place. Still to take exams here. Like when you look back at this redshirt freshman year, like I know you mentioned all the personal, mental. How do you just not get worn down when it's like, crap, I still got to go to college. Crap, I still got studies. Crap, I actually got to, take these, legit classes and not like TV 101 watching or, hey, football analogy, through 102. Like, how do you mentally just not get over them, go,
Yeah, that's part of the reason college sports aren't for everyone. And especially at a really hard school, that's why it's part of getting into a school like this is really special, is because you have to, and on top of the athletics, you have to balance the academics. And I think one thing is, a lot of us on the team is we think about making money after college. And so my dad always tells me this, and I've heard this from other successful people that I've the opportunity to talk to. You have to have a high social battery, a lot of energy in order to deal with a lot of the situations. I got to be able to handle some stressful classes and then go to practice and be able to have a good practice. And if I don't, figure that out and then come back and study for a test at night and then get to bed at a reasonable time. Like those are things that I have to do. And, the very best figure out a way to do that. And, um, you know, we have really great support at Stanford. We have advisors that work with us that help us get our schedules in check. Our coaches are obviously very conscious of our class schedules, and they do a good job of not overtraining us so that we can manage ourselves on the mat and the weight room and also in the classroom. And all of us are obviously academically driven. We feed off of each other. We learn from each other. The upperclassmen are helping the freshmen, advising them on what classes to take, what professors are good. The professors themselves love athletes here. That's one thing that's really special about Stanford is, it's a very, on top of being a very strong academic program, it's also, one of the best, sports programs in the world. Um, so, they care a lot about their athletes. Professors are, if you walk up to your professor and you say, "Hey, I'm on the wrestling team. Hey, I'm on the football team," they're like, "Awesome. How can we work with you?" And so, having that at a school like this is really important, and it really helps make that process of managing, the school and the emotional stresses of competing and obviously the sports themselves a lot easier. So I guess that would be my answer for that. You got to have a high social battery, be able to handle a lot, and then we have great people here that help us do that.
What made you choose Stanford in the first place? Because you had your ticket to everywhere. I heard Penn State, Iowa. There was talk, even like Harvard wanted you. You could have punched your ticket anywhere. Like, what made you decide to stay home, go basically 10 miles or 15 miles up the road, and then everybody is now watching. Like, what was it about Stanford that made you go? You know what? I want to go here instead of any place else. I want to build it here instead of at
Yeah.
Oklahoma State or Penn State.
Yeah, there were a lot of factors, but I'll highlight a few. First, selfishly, I think about making money outside of college. Wrestling is going to be something that consumes my life for maybe the next 10 years, right? Like I'm going to compete in my Olympic cycles. I don't plan on coaching. So I'm gonna finish my career, and then I'm gonna have to go enter the workforce. And so I want to make money one day. I want to be able to drive nice cars and live in a nice area. I love California, and it's expensive to live here, so that's something I consider. Um, so that's one of the reasons. It's one of the best balances of academic and athletics. I can go and pursue a career after this. And anybody who sees Stanford on a resume, they're gonna say we want that guy. So that was one of the biggest attributes for sure. Second is it's close to home. I've grown up near this campus. I started doing judo here for the judo program when I was 4 years old. So I was on campus, Stanford campus, when I was 4 years old at the rec center that I go to for fun now to get lifts and like go swim around and stuff. So it's pretty cool. I always grew up in this area, and my parents really wanted me to go here. It's close to home. It's a great school. They have great program, and I thought it would be special, instead of leaving and representing a different area. I thought there was something special about staying in California and being able to represent the Bay Area and California as a whole. I'm somebody who's Bay built is what Graybird says. Coach Gray says Bay built, so I'm a Bay built guy, and I'm staying within the Bay and representing the Bay and all of the California as a whole. So that's something that's really special to me. And then the last thing is just I could see the commitment that these guys have for this program. I remember watching, obviously I remember hearing, I was thinking about Stanford before they got cut. And then I remember following the whole series of events um, with the reestablishment of the program, watching some of these guys, Shane Griffith, Jaden Abbas, Real Woods, training on a mat in the sun on a field somewhere, representing a black singlet because they wanted to be able to compete under Stanford. That showed me how much heart was at this program and how much commitment was at this program, and that's a very rare thing. It's really easy to be like, oh, we're gonna go somewhere else where it's easier. It's hard to be like, we're gonna stick around, not knowing if our program's gonna stay, and go bring the program back. Being able to win a national title when you barely have training resources is an incredible thing. And so when I saw that, and then I saw all of the momentum that followed, I'm like, this is where I want to go. They're building something. I want to be a part of it, and these guys really care about their program. And and they do. And I came, I committed as soon as I could. You know, the guys that were under Cole's regime, they followed him here, and I knew we were going to build something special, and that was something I wanted to be a part of, and I wanted to help lead the way. And then I think winning a national title, a couple weekends ago was me being able to do my job, and you know just a representation of what we're building. 4 All-Americans, a national champ, Coach of the Year award, where we have something really special going on at Stanford.
Third national champion in the history of Stanford wrestling. How does that feel? Because only it's been Shane Griffin 2021. It was Matt Gentry 2004. Aden Valencia 2026. I mean, you're part of history. It's not like, as you said, it's like Penn State, Oklahoma State, they had tons of them. You're one of only three. So how much do you get to now take pride? Like, hey, I'm one of the very few who's won a national championship for Stanford.
Yeah, it's incredibly humbling for sure. Um, it's an honor to be able to represent this program, and to say that I'm one of their few national champs. With that being said, I hope to be able to say that I'm their first four-timer. So I that's kind of what's on my mind. It's cool to be within the mix of the three, but it would also be pretty cool to have my own label of first four-timer, first multiple time national champion.
This sport takes a lot out of you. And just following your story, like your sister who had to retire suffered 3 torn ACL. She's still badass enough where she plays All American. You've been doing this since the age of 4, and I'm guessing because of that, you've had to probably miss out on prom, can't drink, you can't go out and have too much food. You have to miss parties, birthday parties, graduation parties. You how much else have you had to give up, or what else have you had to give up? But for us normal people, we're like, oh my god, I couldn't give up that. I like that food, or I like doing this, or I like this sort of just sleeping in till 9:30. And you're like 9:30. Wait, you must be just sleeping in late there, buddy. I'm up at 5 a.m.
Yeah, I mean, to be honest, I try to look at it on the bright side. I feel like I'm not missing out because I'm, able to pursue my dreams, right? Like, I always tell my dad, and he always tells me, my coaches, we always say, who's got it better than us, right? Like, I'm out here. I'm a D1 wrestler. This is the dream. Now national champion, and I get to train, and I'm at one of the best colleges in the world, and I get to do what I love every day. So, in my eyes, I'm not missing out, and I think that's definitely, for somebody who thinks that maybe they are. You have to always look at it like, well, these guys are out partying, or these guys are at prom. They're not pursuing their dreams right now, and so that's something that I've been able to take away from the sport. Is there's definitely been a lot of things that I've had to quote unquote miss out on. I didn't have a real senior year. I did all online. I lived at the Olympic Training Center. I never had a graduation party. I didn't go to prom. I think I went one year by myself, and it was very awkward. uh, I didn't have a formal graduation. Obviously didn't make the greatest high school connections because I was focused on my wrestling, and I didn't have a full two. I only had 2 years of real high school. The first was COVID, and then the second was online again. Um, you know, Never been a big party guy. Never drank. Never smoked. Never done anything like that. So it's always been wrestling. But yeah, I don't see it as missing out. I just see it as doing what I love and being able to be the best at what I love to do.
Why do you love wrestling? This is somebody who used to wrestle, but way back in the day. Like, you don't play this sport. It's not like, oh yeah, I play football, I play basketball, I play soccer. Like, you wrestle, which means your body gets put in positions that probably would make normal even acupuncturists go, oh my god, it's painful. There's mat burn, there's cauliflower ear. You have to cut weight. You mentally get put in places where it would break normal people. You love it still. I mean, we hear the stories of, yeah, I have a mattress in the wrestling room where I can sleep at. I watch wrestling. As you said, after this, in 3 weeks, you're going to be going for Olympic training here. Like, you've done this for so long. Why? After everything this sport can put you through, and trust me, it could probably break, seals. What is it about wrestling that for Aden Valencia, it's like, I can't get rid of it. It's in my goddamn DNA. This is my passion.
Yeah, I mean, there's a lot of things that I love about the sport. It's really hard to highlight one. First of all, it's there's nothing that forces you to look within more than wrestling. I feel like it builds your character more than anything else. You can work your ass off, train hard, and there's still so many situations in which you never accomplish your goals. And I can't tell you how many sleepless nights I've had where, I was almost the guy, almost the guy, almost the guy, and I just could never figure it out, never get it done. I worked hard. I felt like I was one of the best guys in the room. I felt like I was doing all the right things, and you might never get it. And eventually you do. Eventually, sometimes you don't. It's one of those things that it just builds so much character. Um, and it almost makes the rest of life easy just because of how much work goes into this, and there's no promise for victory, right? It's not like in the classroom. If I turn in my assignments and I study for a test, I'm going to get a good grade on the test, and I'm going to get an A on my assignments, and I'm going to get a good grade. At work, if I am on top of my stuff, showing up on time, and I'm a good leader, I'm going to get promoted, or I'm going to get this job, right? It's not like that. It's there's so many variables that change with a sport like wrestling. You could be the best guy, you get thrown to your back, caught. Spencer Lee versus Ramos. Um, a couple years ago at NCAAs, right? Like there's situations like that. You don't get what you want, and you could do, like I said, you could do all the right things, and sometimes it doesn't work out. And that's something. It's almost like. That's something that just like sits very deeply with me. That's really important about the sport is just how much you can put into it with no promise for victory. The other element of it that I love is just the fact that it's just you out there. Every other sport. I played hockey competitively for 10 years. I was AAA. My team competed at national tournaments. We went to world championships in Quebec. Um, I wanted to go before, I did wrestling and hockey at the same time. And before I like right before high school, I ended up dropping hockey. But before that, I wanted to go pursue NHL, and that's what I wanted to do. Um, Basically throughout all of elementary and middle school. And one thing that I remember feeling that was very different between wrestling and hockey was, hockey. If I had a bad game, but my team won, like my team still won, right? I get to walk away. I could have the worst game in the NHL Stanley Cup Finals, but if my team played well, then we won, right? There's almost like no consequence for not being able to perform. You have people to rely on, and that's definitely a really special thing too. There's a lot of amazing things about team sports and bonding with other people. But one thing that's really special about wrestling is that, when I was out there in the final match, it's 15,000 people staring directly at me, right? All the center, all the pressure is on that moment. And there's very few people. It's almost a respect that I gained for myself, but there's very few people that can perform under those situations. It takes a different breed. It really does to be able to compete at that level in front of however many 15, 20,000 people, leaving all your dreams and everything on the line in front of them. And it's just an incredibly humbling thing. And then obviously just the lessons that you learn from wrestling and the people that you meet, the brothers you make, the coaches that change your life. There's so many great things about the sport. It's just the wrestling community is just a really special community. Wrestlers love wrestlers, and it's a special community to be a part of.
So before we let you go, it's funny. Your sister, your parents, your teammates, your coaches, they seem to almost be more enjoyous of you winning the national championship than yourself. I mean, when you look at this, how much do you look and go? And you said everything here. Yeah, this is but individual and everything, but the coaches, your teammates, your sister, your parents, like they view it as we were there to help build you along the way. We were there to be part of this. Our happiness is because you got to this peak. Like you take pride in that all these people view you as this very special person that hey, his accomplishment, his winning the national championship makes us as happy as he is.
Yeah, 100%. I think the people that were behind me on this one know how much everybody played a role in this title. I really can't say that I won a national title alone. There's a lot of road bumps. A lot of things that happened throughout the year. Just a lot of wonky weeks and losses that were weird, and everybody that played a role in making me better contributed to me winning a national title. My parents, I had some dark days with them. Crying because I couldn't figure it out, and tough losses that I just couldn't figure it out, and it took a lot of conversations, and this stems far beyond college too. I didn't have a super successful high school career. I didn't do very much. I won a couple tournaments, a couple senior, just a handful, but there wasn't a lot that I won. And so there was a lot of questioning and just am I really the guy? Am I can I do it? Can I be the very best? And yes, I had a lot of self belief, but I had my parents there along the way. My dad had played a major role in helping me believe that I could do it and that I had all the skills. My sister's been my training partner basically my whole life up until high school, and her and I have really connected and bonded through this sport. Originally she wasn't going to do it, and we didn't even think she was going to wrestle in college, and that was a special moment when she decided to. So this sport has really brought us close together. And when she, wasn't able, when we found out she was going to compete for the very last time at nationals, that definitely, took a toll on me. And I felt like, as a good brother and as a good teammate, it was my almost my job, my duty to go out there and perform and win for our family because she was never going to get a chance to do it, herself. So that was another thing that was important to me. And then my teammates and my coaches, we spent so many hours in this room just fixing all of these little things. Every time I'm in the locker room and Ayers passes by, he tells me you're going to be a national champ, and just planting these little seeds in my head. Hayden rolling with me just about every week, over multiple times a week. There's a lot of mind games that he played with me, looking back now, that I think about. That just made me tougher and better. Gray, I spent a lot of time in here working privates with him, and he's played a tremendous role in helping me improve, especially on my finishes and my top game. That played a role. And Brucky, another guy who's been really hard on me. He's got a little bit of a different coaching style that's really needed. At this program, he's really hard on us. He's tough dude, very like a Navy SEAL Team 6 type of dude, right? And that's something that's really necessary, especially a guy like me. I wouldn't say that I lack discipline, but sometimes I'm not on time to things. I'm still a kid at the end of the day, and so it's important to have people like that push you and that hold you accountable. And Brock, he's always kind of been that guy that's like really hard on me and holds me accountable. And then just my teammates themselves, right? Like we push each other really hard in here, and these guys see what I'm capable of and they want to see me win. And so, they all have my back. They all support me. We're all very close here at this program. Seniors hang out with freshmen, and it's just like we have a very tight community, tight culture. Everybody, when coaching staff swaps, people decided to stay and to commit to Stanford. So to see their guys win is important. I know how excited I got when I saw Consiglio win an ACC title, when I saw EJ Parco qualify for NCAAs. When our guys win matches, we're on our feet, and they were mat side when I was able to win mine. So everybody that surrounded me played a major role in getting me there, and so it meant a lot to all of us. It meant a lot to me, my parents, my sister, my family, my coaches, the program, my teammates. It meant a lot to all of us.
Well, there you have it, ladies and gentlemen. Once again, the champ is here. And yes, even I was tearing up after him. His family are crying because he won the national championship. I give you America's newest darling. I give you NCAA 149-pound champion. I give you Aden Valencia. So, Aden, before I let you go, where can fans check you out at? Where's the Twitter? There's probably an Instagram. You have a YouTube channel where you're teaching people stuff. And where can fans check out Stanford University Wrestling?
Yeah, so look up Aden and Still on Instagram. Aden Aden and Still. I also have the same username on TikTok, but I'm a little bit more heavy on Instagram. I do some funny content, kind of making myself look dumb on Instagram, and also do some Technique Tuesdays. So if you tune in on a Tuesday, you'll be able to see some technique videos, some stuff that I hit at NCAAs, maybe learn a couple things or two. Yeah, that's it.
Aden Valencia, ladies and gentlemen, once again, always honor and pleasure to have you on the show. We come back. We got a lot more going on here, only on It's Last Call. Last Call, the alcohol, only on the lastcallpodcast.com.